and thanks for joining us today for the 11th of our monthly webinar series. My name's Greig Ward. I'm the Learning and Development Manager or Creative Content Manager here at the Marketing Sales Group. While we're based in Camberwell in Melbourne, we know that our attendees have registered from throughout Australia, which is fantastic, and we know we've got people from overseas that also register so they can watch the recording at a time that's more amenable to them. Today, our focus is very much going to be on, as we can see here, developing a mindset for success. And while we at the Marketing Sales Group spend quite a bit of time working on what many people would call the hard skills in sales, leadership, management, and coaching, and customer experience as well, there's more and more demand from our clients and our member base that we have throughout Australia and overseas for what some people might regard as the softer skills or the behaviours. And this links in directly with this topic today of this mindset for success. So while we're considering that, I'd like you to think of, to put a question to you, if you could just utilise the chat and give us your thoughts, just a quick response. Being a webinar, we don't have your cameras on and we don't have your microphones on. So the chat's the one opportunity we have for you to have some input here. But the question I'd like to ask of you to kick off today is, what do you believe are the personal traits or behaviours that can enhance an individual's chance of success? And maybe we try and keep it to workplace success today. I know success depends on how you define it. So what are some of the traits or behaviours that you believe can enhance a person's individual chance of success? So for you, you might be considering thanks, Iris, influence and empowering others. Cara, hi Cara, high personal standards there. So those people who set standards for themselves rather than wait for others to set them for them, exceeding them. Any others people can think of? So standards, I'm reading as I'm going here. Traits or behaviours that you believe can help set an individual up for success. And we'll have a look at any more that come in throughout there. Discipline, creativity, authenticity. Thanks, Liz. And for each of those we've already identified, we're starting to find out that we're starting to get what we might call behaviours rather than what some people call learned skills or knowledge before that. So let's move straight into today's area. So I love to kick off with a quote. I'm sort of the king of the quote, but I have no tattoos on me. Genetics may deal the cards, but environment plays the hand. Now, for us within our role as educators, I suppose, or in helping professional development throughout companies throughout Australia and overseas, there's been most of us know about the debate over nature versus nurture. But when we look at the evidence, it's heavily on the side of that the environment plays a huge hand. Our genetics can only take us so far. But there's no genetic trait actually that aligns with success. Right? Now, being born into the right family sometimes might give you the silver spoon in the mouth sort of an impact. But other than that, there's no genetic trait. So the environment plays a huge part. And so the choices we make with what we have is what makes the difference. And this is where we start looking at what we call the success mindset. What we're going to look at today is from a lot of the research from Carol Dweck. For those who are familiar with her work, this is probably her classic of all books. And so we look at the psychology of success. What is it that allows some people to be more successful than others? You would have worked with some people, or yourselves might be more successful than others, but what is it that sets them apart? And so we've dissected some of the work from Dweck, and in her research found that there's certain references to characteristics and traits that tend to lead to more success than those people who don't have those. So let me go through some of these, what they are for you. Now, one question to understand firstly is, and again, might play around with if you can put into the chat there, there's a formula we talk about in our leadership program, and it's also in our modern coach program and in our sales program as well. It's a simple equation, and I may have shared it in a previous webinar, and that is uppercase P equals lowercase p minus I. That is, our performance, how well we perform or how well people on our team perform, will equal our potential. We will be as good as our potential if it wasn't for interference. So in other words, we could be as good as we should be if it wasn't for interference. Oops, sorry about that. Now, the interference we have to consider is what's the greatest interferences we have, right? So what are the greatest interference? For some people, that interference, to give you some insight, is OPP, what we call other people's problems, or what Simon Sinek now refers to as OPO, other people's opinions. That can be referred to as noise. Social media can be an interference. We also have a fixed mindset as an interference. So a belief that things are the way they are. You know, you get what you get, don't get upset. So people that believe they can never do something because they've never done it before. So that fixed mindset can be interference. Sometimes dedicating time and effort to others at the expense of ourselves can be interference. We might be easily distracted. Some of you receive our blogs. This week's blog, should you receive it, is focusing just on people who are easily distracted. And when we're easily distracted, we call it BSOS, if I remember, bright shiny object syndrome. So these are interferences. And the last one, of course, is the inability to focus and for select periods. Now, these are only some of them, but this interference gets in the way of us achieving our potential. So we're going to look at today at what we call a tale of two mindsets. And this tale of two mindsets, coming from Dweck's work, is the fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Now, when we look at a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, consider ourselves as one of the subjects in this, but also the people on your team. And for those of you who have family members, especially if you're parents, you may be able to read some of this too in what you see in your family members and your children at times. So a fixed mindset, according to Dweck's work, is that we believe we're born with predetermined levels of intelligence, talent, and ability. Right? So it's fixed. It's innate from when we're born as to what we will be. And yes, there is certain genetic makeup that will determine our height, and sometimes some other characteristics, eye colour, hair colour, balding patterns for males, etc. And some of those are fixed. They are genetic traits, but not behaviours. Growth mindset is a belief that with effort and experience and the opportunity or exposure, we might say, we can become smarter, we can become more capable, and we can become more talented. So how this might look, we look at the growth mindset on the left of the slide, the fixed mindset on the right, and some examples there. On the right side, if we look at fixed, we look at those who avoid making mistakes. Some of us might remember in school, yeah, that I'll never be that smart, or I come from a family of X profession and therefore I'll probably go into that profession, as if it's genetically determined. What I know is best, this will do, I give up, you know, and we'll look at some more statements in a moment that come from it, because the way we think is often directly affects the way we act. On the growth mindset side, we look at that thing that if there's a mistake, it's really sort of, some people talk about as failing forwards, that mistakes help us learn. What can we learn from that? If there was an error or a mistake, it's not necessarily a failure, it's just a way to understand how to move forward. Feedback, when it's received from someone, even though it doesn't always land so well for some of us, it can be extremely valuable to prevent us making common mistakes. Is this my best work? Could I have done better? If I could, what held me back? I can improve with practice. Nearly everyone does. So what would prevent us doing it? And the inability or the lack of desire to give up. So these sort of don't differentiate between this growth mindset or the fixed mindset. I haven't got the picture here, but there's another book as well that talks about this. But I think it's Julia Galef wrote the book called The Scout Mindset. And she makes a comparison very similar to Carol Dweck's work. Rather than a growth and a fixed mindset, she talks of a soldier mindset. A soldier stays back, minds the fort. It's a fixed opinion, fixed status. They know what they've got to do. Soldier mindset. The scout mindset is the growth one. Go out, look for opportunities, go out and forage, go out and look for threats, which is the growth. So going and exploring. So a similar theme, just different way, another way to write another book, I guess, too. So again, what are some characteristics of the fixed mindset? For those of us who are in HR or leadership position, we sometimes look for these traits for people that might have fixed mindsets as to why it might be holding them back from opportunities to advance and opportunities for promotion, opportunities for newer responsibilities. So the fixed mindset, some of the traits and behaviours, and some of this might echo the previous slide, they'll avoid challenges because usually it's because they don't want to be seen as making an error because they see errors as a bad thing. May give up or capitulate easy. Might block out or be unreceptive to what we call redirecting feedback. So we talk about two types of feedback in our programs. We talk about reinforcing feedback, which most people refer to as positive feedback, which means we want to see more of it. So it's reinforcing. Redirecting feedback is got a bad rap because people call it negative feedback. Redirecting feedback is really people giving you feedback that's trying to redirect your behavior to change it. So people with a fixed mindset tend to block that out. And fourthly, you can see here on the left, they can be threatened or intimidated by the success of others because comparison, the killer that it is, shows them that they're nowhere near as good as someone else. So this fixed mindset. The growth mindset traits and behaviours, in contrast, they tend to embrace challenges because it'll push them, it'll challenge them, it'll show them where they're at. They can persist despite the setbacks. And this is an important part, the persisting despite setbacks, because setbacks is usually what identifies someone that will capitulate. Whereas people that persist despite setbacks have another characteristic called grit, which Carol Dweck identifies as the secret sauce for success. Growth mindset, we accept and act upon all feedback, regardless of whether it's redirecting or reinforcing, and learn from and gain inspiration from the success of others, rather than looking at the difference and comparison, how much better someone might be at performing a task than us. We see that as a possibility or a way to bridge that gap. Now, how people think can influence how we act and some of the statements. So this is some of the statements for those of us trying to identify, well, is this person on my team coming from a position of a fixed mindset or a position of a growth mindset? And I'll put some schooling examples in there because how we, for those of us who have been through the parenting cycle, or for those about to go through it, you'll hopefully be able to relate to this too. But the fixed mindset, I'm just no good at this, right? Whether that be math, art, spreadsheets, music, whatever it might be, I'm just no good at it. Versus the growth mindset, these things, whatever it be, math, spreadsheets, art, they challenge me, yet I know I can improve with practice. The second one, I can never do a presentation in front of a group. As a matter of fact, I think people still believe that fear of public speaking is one of the #1 fears. It's never been higher than number 9. Number 1 is held strongly by arachnophobia. Fun fact for today. So I can never do a presentation in front of a group. Versus, gee, with steady practice, I could get to a point where I'm more at ease with presenting. All right. So, but understanding it's going to take practice. It's not just going to happen. Thirdly, I avoid asking for help as it can highlight a weakness versus seeking feedback and advice because that helps me develop the areas I need. And on the left-hand side, a failure is an indication of my limitation versus failures can be setbacks, yet they can highlight where I can improve. So what Dweck's identified, and a lot of research around this now between fixed mindset and growth mindset, is the fixed mindset sees it as a limitation. This is where I'm at, and they may have reasons for, we'll talk about justifications in the next slide, versus this is currently where I'm at, but it's not where I'll be. Right? I choose to improve, or I choose to get better, or I choose to learn from that, and that is my choice. And it's a choice that I will make, but it needs to be made with the growth mindset, knowing that things can improve. Apologies for the very small font on the left. Hopefully you're looking at a larger screen. If you're on a small phone, it might not come up too well. I have used this slide in a previous webinar for those who watched some of our webinars previously. And what this model here is called ORBED, O-A-R-B-E-D. All right. And this slide's from Sarah Main. It's a variation on it. We refer to it as ORBED. Above the line, we have O-A-R. Below the line, we have B-E-D. And we talk about above the line and below the line behavior. And this aligns very much with a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Above the line behavior, we have ownership, accountability, and responsibility, right? Because we've done an action, but we take ownership of it. We take accountability and we take responsibility. If there was an error, it was our error. If we got a parking fine, we overstayed the limit. we understand. We might not agree with it. We don't like it, but we do need to take accountability and ownership and responsibility of it. And when we start taking this mindset, we take the mindset of what's called the victor mindset versus the victim mindset. The victim mindset reacts to things that have happened around them, right? And they tend to use what we call blame, excuses, and denial. Now, this is not being overly judgmental. We all, at times, will think below the line. But as we guide and coach and lead people, we need to be acting above the line. So it's okay, and most people do think below the line. With frustrations, we know why we were late, right? We know why this was done. There is a reason for it, but does everyone need to know it? Do we need to broadcast it? Can we own it? And can we take accountability and responsibility? So this is where we can move from the victim mindset to a victor mindset. And it's simply taking ownership and accountability and responsibility for things that have taken place. And once they've taken place, or the hand has been dealt, as we talked about earlier, what do we do with it and what can we do about it? So this above and below the line thinking is truly a game changer for those who are in leadership and people management, for sure. And sharing it with your team members is also a big plus. Don't keep it hidden from them. We refer to this as our sort of an internal reset switch. And so Winston Churchill, success moving from one failure to another without loss of enthusiasm. We now talk about it as a reset switch. That is, the past mistake you made has the new project you're working on has no memory of the past project. It's only us that has the memory. So this reset switch is realizing that, okay, if we made an error before, or it didn't go as well, or we didn't get the credit or the success rate, or we didn't hit our sales target as hoped or as projected, that last month does not know the next month, and the next month does not look back to the last month. It's only us that looks back. So we need to be able to have what's called a reset switch, is what Churchill was referring to. We just move forwards. It doesn't mean we don't remember, because remembering is extremely important, so we learn from it, but we can move forwards. So how do we create a mindset success? All right. So how do we create this mindset? A set of beliefs we have, and we've got to understand it's how the world is shaped around us and how we view the world and how we view ourselves within the world. All right. So that's how our mindset is formed. And these beliefs we have, right? Now, when we believe those beliefs to be true, they become a bias. And we all have bias. We've just got to watch out for them. So similar to the trait as I've identified here of optimism, a success mindset is pretty much wired to seek out the possibilities, alternatives, and other options, and they're grounded in the belief that there can or will be a desirable outcome. So it's similar to optimism in many ways, but they look for ways through. There is a way through. Just how do we find it? Right? And the success mindset believes there is a way and will work towards it. So it becomes a problem-solving exercise, not a limiting belief. So here are 8 ways. So let's cut to the nitty-gritty of it today. So how can we build this success mindset, not only in ourselves, but in our colleagues or team members that we're working with? 8 steps here that don't have to be aligned. They're separate ways. Outside the comfort zone, many of us familiar with, I think it was Stephen Covey who came up with the original model, where if you think of concentric circles, inside's our comfort zone, which is things we already know, the skills we already have, and the attitudes we already hold. Right, so that's our comfort zone. We know what we know. Stepping outside our comfort zone, the next zone is what's called the learning zone. Now, stepping into the learning zone can be a bit trepidation, can lead to uncertainty, anxiety at times. But stepping out there is where we learn. That's why it's referred to as the learning zone. We don't learn anything new in our comfort zone, right? It just reinforces what makes us comfortable. So we know to have a successful mindset, it's going to be uncomfortable at times. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be strange. It's going to be weird. I don't know if I like this. I'm not familiar with it. There might cause some anxiety. But knowing that slight stressors, as we call them, can lead to the success. We usually process back in the comfort zone, though, just as a side note. So we tend to come back into the comfort zone to process. We don't always process when we're way out of our comfort zone, even though we're learning. The second one, view challenges as opportunities. See it as a way to improve or to learn. Thirdly, it's extremely important that we reframe our beliefs on failure. It's probably one of the oldest examples, and I apologise if you've heard it 1,000 times before, but Thomas Edison, when he was creating the light bulb, was it's just a beautiful quote. He says, "I didn't find one way a light bulb works. I found about 500 to 600 ways a light bulb doesn't work." And identifying to say, this is, they're failures, but now I know that doesn't work. I can push that one aside and start on something new. Now, this is also done in science all the time now, making errors along the way till we finally come up with the right solution. Fourthly, on the right-hand side, don't seek to please others. This can be a great challenge because if we seek to please others, we'll end up being this compliant behaviour in many ways. And success mindset, well, there's compliant mentality there, especially if you're working in regulated organisations, but we're not just seeking to please others, we're seeking to find a better way. Value the process that goes in with a success mindset. There is a process to success. It just doesn't happen. It's what we call, we don't have a lottery mentality and success mindset. A success mindset is not a lottery mentality. A lottery mentality is we keep buying lottery tickets in the belief that one day we'll hit it rich. So a success mindset believes that you may do that and you may be successful, but there are a lot of other things you should be doing in the interim. Seek and embrace feedback, which we've already made reference to. Understand the power of yet. This is probably one of the most powerful words, and whether you're managing people, leading people, or in the role of, as I mentioned before, in the role of a parent, rather than the word but, try and tend to use the word yet. Or at the end of a statement that sounds definitive, use the word yet. That is, it might be a child doing a basketball shot. I haven't shot a three-pointer. I haven't shot a three-pointer yet. I haven't found the solution. I haven't found the solution yet. I haven't completed the project. I haven't completed the project yet. So this yet says it will get done. It's just not there. I haven't achieved this sales target in a month. I've never hit that target. You haven't hit that target yet, right? Which suggests it can be done. Right, and opens up that optimism channel that the success mindset has. And lastly, they're having the right mentor. The right mentor, we can't do it alone. Right? Yet, if we look at anyone through history, and I think it was Benjamin Franklin when he was elected to the president of the Royal Society. And as he was elected to president of the Royal Society, his speech, if I recall this, was, "If I stand here in front of you, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants." In other words, Benjamin Franklin, even though, yes, he was a wise man and a brilliant scientist, there was other people before him that did a lot of experimenting that he piggybacked on. So for us to learn from these mentors is extremely important. And so picking the right mentor to guide us can also help us. So there's 8 tips that we can utilise. I share this picture as we come towards the conclusion of today, largely because looking at what's called a possibility mindset. Like, what is possible? And this was on the news last week. Some of you may have seen it if you're watching, news of a night time, or it might have been on social media as well. And it's the success of it is what I used to call tightrope walking. It's actually called slacklining. They've corrected me now. But it's between 2 hot air balloons, and a gentleman's walking between 2 hot air balloons suspended thousands of feet there, and walks and makes it across between 2 hot air balloons. Now, people used to be able to walk a tightrope, were considered next level. Now they're doing it between balloons. There was another person on the same day, just for a fun fact, who made it to halfway, then jumped off because they had a parachute strapped to their back and they skydived off there. And you go, this is next level. And there's a beautiful quote I heard recently, and hopefully it doesn't confuse you, because it did for me at the start. But it says, "The rate of change today has never been so rapid, yet it will never be as slow again." So we are improving and making changes constantly at a faster rate than ever. But if we look back in history, today will be slower than any other time in the future. There'll be more and more change, more and more innovations. And these more and more innovations that are going to take place require us to keep up with them. And to keep up with them, this pace of change, we just need to have a more of a growth mindset. Carol Dweck mentions in her book there, it's a good quote, it sort of brings us to the conclusion today, that the passion for stretching yourself and sticking to it, even when it's not going well, emphasis, is the hallmark of a growth mindset. This is the mindset that allows people to thrive during some of the most challenging times in their lives, right? So being able to stick the path even when it's not all going well. That brings us to a conclusion for today. I tried to keep it short and sweet inside people's lunch and learn. I know many people are utilising these webinars, and thank you for that. Once a month, a little thing to sit aside with your sandwich or your soup or your soba noodles. There's 3 S's. Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to look at your looking forward into 2025. Be sure to look with your team what your professional development plans look like for 2025, what programs you've got your staff. Are you investing in your team? Do you need some assistance with that? Please reach out if you feel that we at the Marketing Sales Group could offer and assist you in the development of your staff in 2025. And also, as we come into the last month, today's our penultimate webinar. Our final webinar takes place on December the 2nd, and it'll be looking at purposeful intentions, setting purposeful intentions. Not just setting goals, but how do we set intentions so that we can start 2025 off with a bang. Thanks very much, everyone, today.